Hi again, Scott with Work Happier. Today we're going to talk a little bit about people management. It's a passion of mine, and so let's just dig into it. I came across this recently. Let's just set it up here. A new director in a hospitality format says managers and staff constantly question and push back on everything. This is it's near and dear to me. I spent 6 years early in my career doing jobs like this, sort of moving into underperforming teams, giving analysis, and then building a strategy and executing the strategy to turn it around. So I have a little bit of experience doing what this new director is attempting to do. He goes on to give a pretty good example here of painting the picture of a staff in a building that's been under poor leadership and maybe some chaotic management, right, previously. And so here's his example when asked is, recently had a very busy day and, a lot of guests and visitors arriving in that day, and so he wanted cookies and champagne in the lobby for waiting guests. And the manager says, we only do that on certain days, right? And this is cited as like refusal to do the work, to push this. It's pushback. This is what I'm saying. But is it? Like, are we sure? Because I'm not totally convinced that, given how this is set up, that this is pushback at all. Let's kind of go back here. You've got new leadership. You've got a previously disorganized department. And what does that typically mean, right? It means limited trust. I mean, we've likely had trust broken over and over again. There are habits, there are old standards, there are assumptions being made, and most importantly, obviously, there's unclear expectations, because now we're asked to do things that we previously of what we do. So when somebody says in that situation to you as the employee, we only do that on weekdays, it might not be a refusal, right? I guess my experience would say that it's more of a poor communication style in terms of asking a question, right? It's like, are we changing the standard? Is this temporary? Is this a one-time thing? Is this what the expectation is? Are we doing cookies and champagne every day because we need to, adjust purchasing? Like, there are, like, how is this thing going to be handled moving forward? Because there are other factors that then come into play. And so not always, questions are not always resistance, right? And especially in high-performing environments, fast-moving, those kinds of things, questions are typically a sign that people are trying to understand so that they can execute. And I know that because I'm the person who questions. Like, that's me. I'm not ever, in my opinion, resisting. I've always been somebody who wants to know and understand, why are we doing what we're doing? What is the decision-making process, so that I can follow along? Not because I'm resisting, right? But because I would consider myself to be, at least I'm attempting to be, a high performer. And in order to do that, like, understanding is critical to high performance. I have found, not just myself, but the people who I have worked with in the past, that are I'm not going to say operational thinkers, but maybe that is the right term. Are asking questions like, why, always, what are the conditions for what we're doing? What's the actual goal? What are we trying to do here? What's the outcome? And like I said, what else changes downstream? And when I step into these roles, and I'm not saying that this person who said this, and maybe I am, I see a weak leader, or new. If you're new to leadership, oftentimes you misinterpret questions as a challenge or disrespectful and insubordination, and that's a lot of the time actually reinforced to a certain extent, because there's a lot of advice out there, right? You'll ask these questions and people will say, come into a new environment and establish authority and lay down the law or whatever you want to say, and that's not how I would go about doing it, because a strong leader typically does understand the questions are actually, these kinds of questions are signaling engagement. They want to know. They're trying to take ownership of something, and they're trying to build trust, right? So you kind of have to ask the question of yourself in this situation. Am I telling people what to do, or am I bringing them together to move towards a desired, a collective outcome? Are we working together, right? And so you'll see these kind of new leaders often, like they'll kind of walk in and right, like I said, they'll start issuing directives without aligning the team around things like what's the strategy, what are the standards, what are the priorities, and most importantly, for every situation like this, if you're moving into a new team, make sure everybody's on the same page in terms of why changes are happening. And I don't mean hand out a piece of paper that says here are the new guidelines. You can do that, but then have conversations with everybody about what those guidelines are, why, what are we trying to achieve, and you will find, I think, much cleaner from an alignment standpoint in those kinds of situations. And if you feel like questions or pushback every time is insubordination, or however you want to call it, you're not building that alignment. Like, you're just not. Do you want to building an environment of science and yes people? Not how I want to work. It's not how strong teams work typically. And kind of maybe even a larger point in this kind of a situation is when a team has had inconsistent or poor leadership. That hesitation, that kind of like missing level of trust and seeking that is totally normal. Because people are just trying to figure out things, like I said, like what's changed, what matters now, and what expectations and consistency look like. So in closing, don't always interpret questions as pushback. They are not always pushback. And even if they're not framed like a question, right? Even if they're framed like this, but we don't always, we don't do that on weekdays. Sometimes people are just trying to, and oftentimes people are just trying to understand the game so they can play it, right? And so this is people management. And once again, I am Scott. Work happier. Thank you for listening. If you want me to answer anything, you got questions, comments, anything like that, like always, just look down in the description. My email is in there. Happy to engage. Have a good one, and good luck out there, everybody. Thanks.